All right, folks. Here we are. A few things going on today, not too many. Not much. No huge Iran-Contra type material out there. Tony folks made it over. Nobody was alive. He said he was going to do a raid. I see what you're saying, MJ. I don't know, Jim, if you can do anything to collect Tony's folks and tell them to come on over, that would be great. Any case, you're here. And you hear me, right? These are awesome parts. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back. I am your host, your humble host, Cliff Schechter, here in the Queen City, Radio City. The great town of Cincinnati. Had a lot happen in the past 24 hours. White House, they don't really know how to play poker. They think they can bluff really well, but they don't understand when in the end, if you have a losing hand, and everyone knows that you have folded so many times in the past. I'm gonna have tariffs. No, I'm not. Tariffs again. Tariffs Canada. No, I'm gonna pull back on them. You know, you can really only be full of crap so many times. Now, for MAGA folks, and sadly too many people out there, this guy can lie as many times as he wants. They all can, and they fall for it. But when it comes to Trump and the people around him, and Pete Hegseth, you know, our favorite Nazi-symboled, perpetually drunk, probably hung out with Brett Kavanaugh and Squee and PJ and the gang, working out, blacking out, puking a lot. I mean, seriously, whatever. I could go to making fun of him, or I could just say who he is. He's a drunken lowlife. He's a loser whose mom wrote him a letter about how he abused women. He cheated on his wife with a Fox producer and had a baby. That was like his second wife. He is an amoral, immoral, complete loser to society, a racist with that Nazi symbol on him who couldn't be trusted to guard Joe Biden's inauguration because they thought he was such a racist and potentially violent. He's a complete idiot. And this is who every Republican, save Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, and I guess Mitch McConnell, but we're not going to even count him if he thinks he's not going to hell. Something else in store for him. Or if you believe in that kind of thing. If Tom Tillis, who dragged HEGSETH'S sister-in-law out there to expose herself in testifying against him, had stood up to his word and not being the lying piece of crap that he was, he would have voted against him, but he was scared. Apparently, he told people he was scared for his safety. Well, you know what? Then go home. Let somebody who has the guts to do the job do it. We're all out here putting ourselves in harm's way when we're talking about things like this. And I know you even more so. I don't give a damn. This guy could have been stopped and never got there. Instead, on Signal, he talked about actual operational attack plans. They talked about attacks as they were going on. They talked about attack plans coming up. J.D. Vance insulted Europe and said that we shouldn't go through with these attack plans because J.D. Vance proving beyond a doubt that he's everything we thought he is, which is pretty much a completely soulless, incel-adjacent asshole who nobody has ever liked, who is the charisma of an old rotten shoe dragged through a pile of yak feces. And in the end, these unlikable, incredibly stupid morons who've clearly been conducting all sorts of business on Signal, that we talked about this yesterday. It didn't, you know, they weren't just like acting like, should we try this? These were conversations. Susie Wiles, their advisor, was on there too. Like the whole chain of people who were on there. Ratcliffe from the CIA, Walsh, the idiot from NSA. All these people clearly too stupid to know it can be compromised. One of them was in Moscow at the time. Shocker there. Wonder what they were doing. But even if they weren't there to actually hand over our secrets directly to Russia, Signal is not perfect. It's better than WhatsApp, and it's the one I trust the most. But it can be compromised. People can bust into it. And that's where these guys were discussing it. And they were doing it because they break the law regularly. It is what they do. The laws don't apply to them. This is why Merrick Garland and all of them failed so miserably, because some of us who have cerebral cortexes that function saw all this coming and said, maybe you could step outside of your little protocols and, we don't want to say anything that would be biased. Maybe you can get a sack for a little bit. Sorry to women out there for using that term, and open your fucking mouth and let people know exactly who it is we're dealing with. And if they get back into government, what it's going to look like. Maybe you could have held press conferences every week and reminded us who these ghouls were. Unbelievable. So Hegseth did what he does best, what J.D. Vance does best, whatever. I mean, it's hard to say whether they do best or they best at offending every ally of ours. Are they best at smelling like an old drunk who passed out with arsenic all over their body? Are they best at really just the number of gross and idiotic and stupid things? But I think the thing they are best at is lying constantly. And so they lied constantly. And he lied. I mean, like, what did he think was going to happen? It reminds me of like, anybody here, Eddie Murphy fan? You ever the old Eddie Murphy kind of routine from Eddie Murphy Raw, where a guy's like cheating on his wife, and he's like, she catches him, and always like, he's like, you just used the Jedi mind trick on her. She's like, I saw you with her. You were with her. Wasn't me. No. I saw you from the front. I saw you holding her hand. Wasn't me. No, it was definitely you. It wasn't me. Okay, maybe it wasn't you. That's apparently what Pete Hegseth thought was going to work here. He thought if he just kept denying that there were texts, and Signal is a texting app, it's an encrypted one, but if he was trying to use semantics there, he's also an idiot. So there were no texts. There's no texting. I don't know. You're talking about text, blah, 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 which basically went on TV and confirmed by accident that there were texts. And then, of course, they attacked Jeffrey Goldberg, and they said, oh, this reporter is known to be, the stuff they usually say. And a funny little side note, when I wrote a book on John McCain back in 2008, and this stuff is almost standard protocol. I talked about, he had said a couple choice, very bad words. One that started with starts with the letter C, about his wife one time in front of reporters. A couple other times, because he was known for having this horrible temper. And I include this in my book. And of course, that's what was paid attention to. That's what Jon Stewart, why he had it on The Daily Show and whatever. Not because of any the 200 whatever pages of material, but those are the things they always pick up. It's standard protocol that they're going to attack whoever it is, right? So as soon as it came out, they're like, well, that person is partisan, which was true, but they're like, he's known to be an unstable and a liar. I'm not sure about those things. On a Saturday night, maybe. So it was obviously this, but they kept going on, and Jeffrey Goldberg had the goods. He has the texts. He saved them. So at what point, when you attack this person's integrity, are they going to just be like, all right? And that's exactly what he did. And you may have seen that in the thumbnail. I literally included two of the text chains. One of them, I mean, the two that I think were most fun, one where we literally laid out our plans for attack, which again, you can't even understand. I mean, somebody breaks into that and gets a hold of that, and our soldiers, our Marines, our pilots, they're all dead, right? Like, you don't need to be a genius to know this. If you tell the opposition where they're going to be. But remember, the New York Times, the fucking failed piece of crap, you should unsubscribe right now and subscribe to my Substack instead. It is cheaper at $1.25 a week. Piece of crap New York Times that people rely on, of course, came out and had to cover all the above the fold and make it like Hillary had just committed something tantamount to the Civil War when she had a couple emails on a private server at home. What these guys have done since Donald Trump, his first term, used his phone regularly, his cell phone, where they had, all sorts of countries of listening devices around the White House. He tweeted out, secretive images we'd taken of Iranian launch sites. He shared an Israeli op against ISIS with his buddies Kislyak and whatever in the Oval Office. It goes on and on. At one point, he was looking over attack plans for North Korea at Mar-a-Lago with his guests. Don't forget about the crapper at Mar-a-Lago filled with reams of documents he stole. I mean, and they arrested two different spies, by the way, one Russian, one Chinese, on the grounds of Mar-a-Lago. My guess is the Russian one was probably a friend. It boggles the mind. And then they go and they do this. This gets people killed. Like, I'm making jokes because you have to make jokes. about it. I don't know how else you handle it, but this is what gets people killed. If a military attack is compromised and they know where we're coming from, how we're planning on doing it, what the timing is, just everything, we die. Our people die. And that is the seriousness with which these fuckwits take the lives of our soldiers. If you can't make that argument to the American people, don't get into signal and then all that and stuff that is very easy for them to deny and to trick people and fool people. Get into the very simple, straightforward. They shared in a way that was bound to become public. Don't even have to say it that way. They shared with the Chinese, Iranians, and basically everybody else attack plans and would get Americans fucking killed. I don't know what else to say. I do have Matt Robeson here. He may know what else to say, but I mean, it's like, I'll make jokes as we go along here, but this is insane in that way. And then that this asshole denied it. I'm probably going to end up getting myself demonetized in this one. I'm so pissed. I mean, and he denied it when Jeffrey Goldberg had the goods. Again, I almost get more pissed at stupidity than anything else, Matt. Like, checkmate, dickheads. He's got the stuff. He can expose it at any point if he chooses to. So if you keep saying the texts don't exist, all he has to do is present them, which he did today. And so we know that the attack plans were in there, and we know that JD Vance literally was saying, maybe we shouldn't do an attack because we shouldn't do an attack. No, that wasn't JD Vance. We shouldn't do it because it'll help Europe. That's the guy they're sending to Greenland right now. I mean, one of the most unlikable, and I use this term very loosely, human beings that exists is this garden gnome, bearded looking little, this is who they're sending to Greenland, owned by Denmark, or at least a part of the kingdom of, and think after he basically said, we shouldn't do this because it'll only help us a little bit and it'll help Europe a lot. We don't want to help them. Yes, we don't want to help our allies. I don't know. Who are you speaking for there, JD? Who is it? I can't think. Does it rhyme with schmooten? Who is it that would want you to not help the Europeans? Okay. That's about 10, 15 straight minutes out of my mouth. Go ahead, Matt.
I'm just really enjoying the viewer comments right here. We've got Rob Law pointing out that Goldberg will be arrested now for exposing national military plans. They baited him into committing a high crime. That's how this works in the end. He'll be arrested. I don't know if your first name is Rob. Can't disagree with you there. It's just the deep irony of, they declare that none of this is classified. I guess this is another case of Trump deciding after the fact,
declassify stuff when he feels
I've declassified since it's passed through the portal of my bathroom. It is now magically declassified,
right? Except
at the same time,
you brought it into the crapper with the other stuff, so it got
declassified. Exactly. It's been toilet purified.
Anyone who defects from their country first a spy has to go through Trump's crapper, so that they're
right. As Homer Simpson said, urinal fresh, and now
yes.
They're going to try and have it both ways. I agree with the irony patrol here. So yeah, it's pretty extraordinary. And since you go in for a lot of well-deserved media criticism, I have to say that I'm really enjoying following the media firestorm that's going on here. It's an actual old-fashioned media firestorm. Like, they're actually piling on to a
I am noticing that, and I'm happy for once, I think. But again, like, they never do it for the right reasons. I honestly believe it's because so many of us through that, I did right away, through that I've got an image of it on standby, of that front page of the New York Times about Hillary and the emails that they did less than a week before a fucking American election.
Oh, yes.
She was running against a madman.
Oh, yes.
I have that on standby. I threw that out.
No evidence.
Yep. Every New York Times reporter I could find, Washington Post, you will never, it doesn't matter.
We should say what it is. Say exactly what the headline says, because people may not remember this. It's burned into your brain.
Well, it depends. You're talking about a few of them. I've got one of them, which is the first one that wasn't Hillary. The one that's really burned into my brain is no evidence found of Trump and Russia, what was it, colluding, working together. That was by Lichtball. That was about a week before that. Actually, I don't have the headline burned into my brain.
That was the big one. That was the big one. It was the exoneration. And it's so fascinating. Look, we've come to expect the Fox News red washing that they do of everything. Oh, this was a glitch. It was a minor mistake. I hold that to the side. It's just interesting. The Trump administration seems to have been caught off guard by an actual firestorm of furor around something that they legitimately did that was very bad and is very full of proof. And they seem, what was really amazing was watching Waltz and Gabbard kind of squirm, kind of, try and do the Potomac two-step. As they
Tulsi's a bit worried right now because,
Yes.
she'll only go to hotels that go from the 4th to the 6th floor at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
no fifth floors and no balconies.
It's interesting for people who didn't watch it. So they're in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Mark Warner is there, and he's like, how was this not a problem, you guys? And Gabbard is literally in the same breath as her co-panelist. Maybe it wasn't Waltz. Maybe it was it HEGSETH'S?
Radcliffe was there. I know,
Radcliffe
also tore him a new one. It was pretty awesome.
Right. And he's saying, well, this actually didn't happen. And Gabbard is in the same breath, like, breathing in his exhalation, saying, well, this did happen, but it wasn't wrong and it wasn't bad. And they're really trying to figure out how to calibrate against Trump's desired approach, which is bluster your way through it, double down every time. And now he's at least conceded that something happened here. And that's
you know what this proves, though, Matt? I mean, again, it proves that if they wanted to, our media could do their job. As much as Trump lies and the Republicans lie, as much as the right-wing media gets their back and will create a false narrative, the New York Times and Washington Post and those places have enough influence, CNN, that if they, on numerous major Trump scandals, I get it, they can't do it on all of them because this guy's 3 scandals a day, but on even just the 10 or 15 worst would give the kind of coverage they gave to Hillary's emails. He could never win an election, is what I say over and again. And this is why there is blood on their hands. I will blame them till the end of time. Whatever this country ends up becoming, if we come out of this better than we went into it, because the Republicans so overreach with this Doge crap that we destroy them if we actually have elections and get FDR type majorities and do stuff that we never thought we could do, and we stop paying attention to unconstitutional, stupid rules like the filibuster in the way that we should have before because of this. It could end up better. It could end up right back where it was before in a similar area. Or as we know, it could get much worse. But no matter what happens, no matter where it goes, this never had to happen, all of this. These mainstream, these corporate media outlets made this happen because if they told people the truth in proportion, in context, like I was doing this for our yesterday on here. I was taking those signal chats and I was trying to put them in the kind of context. Now, I haven't read all the mainstream media today. I literally got this show up and ready 15 minutes ahead of time because I was trying to finish my Substack on this, and those new texts were released and I had to get those in there. But even the ones we'd seen yesterday, right, which were like, JD Vance talked about how, we would have to tell Europe and Egypt, they owed us. Okay, Europe and Egypt, right? Where's the context there? The context of Europe, who we've been constantly baiting, who we've told we will not support on the issue of Ukraine, who we've threatened tariffs against. This is all context to anything JD Vance says about Europe. And any self-respecting reporter, if they want to give anybody a full story, would have to put that in there. But they don't care. Egypt. Remember Egypt? The place that allegedly bribed Trump $1 million. Still don't know what happened because, of course, it disappeared. Thanks, Merrick Garland. But $1 million went from Egypt to Donald Trump. That's context too. Egypt, a country that allegedly bribed Donald Trump or allegedly made a payment of $1 million to Donald Trump. These are important things to include, and they paint an entire picture for a voter who is working their butt off, has 2 jobs, has kids in school, is just trying to get ahead, trying to figure out what's going on and whatever. And it gets past the bluster, so they start seeing that these things are a pattern. But we refuse to do that because there's so many things in there. I'll kick it to you, Matt. Oh, we got a Hal Sparks trade. Welcome, sparklers. Good to have you here. Like there's so much in there beyond just these guys are sharing war plans on Signal. There's so much else to add to that. and they don't do it.
They absolutely don't. And it's a point that Perry is making in the chat here. Not sure if that's a first name or a last name, but I assume it's Steve Perry. That the group chat could have included evidence of them engaging in any heinous crime you could think of, and MAGA would still defend them. And if you would rope into that, Perry, the MAGA piece, Fox News, that's exactly what you're talking about here, Cliff, is that they are basically trotting themselves out to twist reality in the exact same way that if you're a fan of Orwell and you read 1984, and Winston's entire job is to say we've always been at war with East Asia since the very beginning, and that's kind of the through the looking glass nature of what we experience. And it goes back to a core point that you and I have discussed before, which is it's incredible the degree to which people still haven't kind of calibrated the fact that the media is 75% against Democrats and in favor of Trump. It's a simple piece of math. I know you said there'd be no math on this exam, but
they like tax cuts, they like deregulation, and they love the clicks.
Well, it's even simpler, which is that at least half the media by viewership is right-wing propaganda media, right? It is Fox News, it's right-wing radio, it's the new media, it's like the Charlie Kirk stuff, the Joe Rogan stuff, and it is untrammeled full-time propaganda. And the mainstream media, which is, if we're being generous, another half, they try to play it down the middle, and they excerpt all of the little things, they pull them out, like the Egypt connection, what happened to $1 million. All of that gets filtered out in the name of balance. And it's not that I'm against journalistic balance. It's that at the end of the day,
but it's not balance. That's the thing. It's this faux balance. A balance or an equilibrium in anything is where the true values, the true whatever's, if it's weight, if it's honesty, if it's whatever your measurement, if you're using a physical and emotional, is where everything is in balance because you're telling it as it is. And they don't seem to get that if they want actual balance, if one side is lying 98% of the time and the other side is the other 2% of the time, that's the way you cover it. And you need to build a picture for people because they don't follow this stuff like we do. You mentioned Egypt, and you mentioned that J.D. Vance is saying that they're going to owe us a favor. Not mentioning the fact that they've given Trump $1 million payment before, allegedly, is malpractice. If it's Europe and you're mentioning that we're going to be hitting them up for favors, not mentioning that we have already undermined them in numerous ways, including threatened tariffs, threatened attack on Greenland, all these sorts of things. You are not doing your job and giving people the full picture. And we can go on and on. I mean, even this little signal thing in general does not take a lot of genius. If you've been on Signal before, which I am on Signal, it's pretty simple. I cannot send a message to somebody unless they accept it, which means if Jeffrey Goldberg was added, somebody, or Walls was the one who added him, must have sent him something in the past, which then leads you to ask a question. Well, if they've sent him something, and I'm sure they've tried to propagandize him before, get him to reprint their garbage, maybe it didn't work. Who knows? Who else?
Did you see his explanation? Did you see his explanation? No. Goldberg's number just got, sucked in. Did you see that?
Is that what he said? He's lying.
He said, I
have nothing against Goldberg, but that's crap. That's
no.
Not
This
the way
is
Signal works.
This is Walt saying it.
Oh, okay.
He said the reason I have Goldberg's number on there is that it got sucked into my phone. This is like
your phone a freaking vacuum cleaner. Like what? How does your phone work?
Remember Ted Stevens talking about the internet is basically tubes.
It's a series of tubes.
It's a series of tubes. Well, this is a high intelligence official this is the National Security Advisor saying maybe my phone is sucking phone numbers. Look it up, people. Look it up. This is actually amazing stuff. And so what it really prompts for me, and I don't know what you make of it. I got a flavor of this. I'm gonna ask you a question here. I want to know
because I want to actually, if it's related to this, good, because I want to also, I did this yesterday, but I want to repeat, there's one or two other things that are obvious to me about the Signal part of it from this conversation from them that I want to make sure to share with people. Because if the mainstream media won't share it, I'm going to sure as hell be sharing it here to whatever audience I can share it with.
By the way, I love the comments like Pam Matthews, mysteriously sucked in, or Kurt on the radio. Yes, wifey, the porn just got sucked into my phone.
Hey, oh my God. All right.
Right.
Well,
What a great alibi.
Were
Yes,
you here when I
thank you.
used the Eddie Murphy
No.
defense before? Because that was the defense that Pete Hegseth was trying to use, which was, Eddie Murphy would always be like, if your woman catches you with another woman, you just use the Jedi mind trick. I saw you walking out of the movie theater with him. Your arm was around her. Wasn't me. No. I saw you gave her a kiss on the lips, and then you told her you loved her. Wasn't me.
This is known as the Shaggy defense. Is that what you're
telling
me?
Me. Yeah, and it basically just kept saying wasn't, and then she finally was like, okay, maybe it wasn't you. It was like one of Eddie Murphy's, it's when I got a hold of, I think Eddie Murphy Raw. And yes, kids, I'm going to tell you this. One of the few actual records, yes, a record that I owned in that, because the tape age and then the CD age came pretty quickly in my teenagehood. But when I was sort of like preteen, like late single digits, early double digits, we still had, that's right, I had Michael Jackson Thriller on record. I had Synchronicity. I had a couple things like that. But I had the Eddie Murphy Raw. I'd sneak into the room because, of course, I want my parents to know. I think Tipper Gore may have gotten a warning slapped on there. And I don't know if I was supposed to buy it, but I did. It was New York. You could do those things back. They were more worried about New York turning into Escape from New York at that point. It was falling apart. So I got it and heard all that. And that's what the HEGSETH made me think of. It was like, they're like, you were texting. No, I wasn't.
So here's my question. We
saw texts. We've seen pieces of it. Wasn't me. And then they're all just like, dude, it's not working. Your Jedi mind trick. First of all, you're too dumb to pull off a Jedi mind trick and too drunk. But there's just no way. We know you did this. Shut up. Stop lying. Or obviously, I guess somebody's going to have to come out and prove it, which is exactly what Jeffrey Goldberg did. But what I wanted to say, and I don't mind if you have the question, but I just want to make it clear. One, if you're signaling somebody, you've signaled them before if it doesn't take them accepting your signal. Okay. So that's the first thing, which is they are going around public records requests, breaking the law, reaching out to all sorts of reporters to dump attacks of various sorts on Democrats, other Republicans who aren't voting with them, whatever it might be. This is standard operating procedure. Second, this is standard operating procedure for discussing war and perhaps coups and definitely deportation. They're having high-level people. I would be willing to bet you, of course, that they probably set it to erase in like 30 seconds. Well, these idiots didn't, so maybe they don't. That they are having these kinds of conversations, like what went on when we sent a innocent gay barber and a soccer player with a Real Madrid, tattoo, because that's evil somehow. Which means we'd have to send half the world to El Salvador. When we did that, I promise you there are discussions on Signal. Like what this tells you and what any reporter worth anything would write is if they're having this kind of a relaxed conversation about war making on Signal, they're talking about everything on Signal to hide from public records requests. It is illegal.
That's exactly it. All right. I have three things. And the last one is my big question for you. First, I have got to give a shout out to Barbara Binstein for the funniest comment so far in the chat. Mark me safe for not getting sucked into a Signal text chat.
Nice.
Bravo. That is,
you're better than me.
Spot on. Boom. Thank you, Barbara.
I'm just going to apologize.
We might all get sucked in. Careful, people. All right.
I apologize if I haven't seen everything. My bad.
For people who just with no reason you'd know my background, I spent about a decade as a congressional staffer. Yes, I'm a Democrat, but this was back in a day where you could actually have some productive relationships with Republicans. And I happened to have a friendship with a Republican member of Congress who was a member of the Intelligence Committee. And he explained to me back in the day that it was well known to people like members of Congress who worked in intelligence circles that there were technological ways to have extremely secure communications that no one could ever get a hold of. It's not that hard to do. He showed me one. It was on BlackBerry technology at the time. But the point is, there's something going on here between the confluence of this is amateur hour and they're trying to clumsily work their way around public records laws. Number three, I want to ask a question to you. I'm wondering if what you have in the back of your mind is the same thing that's occurring to me. I'm going to quote back to you the headline on your great Substack post from
Wow.
Bloomberg. This
You
is from
can always do that, Matt.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Look, you open your this is from today, and it's breaking. Idiot Pete Hegseth lies about signal texts, leading reporter to share them today, right? And then you have a quote, a nice pull quote right below that. There's too many men, too many people making too many problems, and not much love to go around. Can't you see this is a land of confusion? I want to pick up on land of confusion. I want to ask you what was in your mind about that, because the thing that worries me the most about all of this is that we're now in a position where, as you said in your headline, you have people just absolutely with a straight face trying to gaslight and lie about things that are very obviously apparent to our own eyes. It's become a basic question of the definition of reality and whether this is going to become a land of confusion. And that's why I wanted to harp on the role of the media in all this, because they have a situation right now where there is blatant lying happening, and there is proof right in front of them. Here, no, what you're saying is a lie. It is false. Will they let the administration off the hook for it? Because the fundamental ability to understand our reality, that is the foundation. I know I sound highfalutin about this, but that is the foundation of a democracy.
That's the only way democracy can function. I mean,
it's the only way we can function. If we can't agree on a shared reality, we cannot govern ourselves. And that is what the Trump administration is undermining. And this whole thing feels to me, and it feels like what you were suggesting in your Substack was that is what is up to the test right now. And it's a test to the media about whether they will let the Trump administration destroy our shared understanding of reality. Cliff, my question, is that what was in the back of your mind?
It was. I'm so glad you got it. Seriously. No, because I, as a big believer in art as a form of critique, why I love comedians, why I think George Carlin was as close to a prophet maybe as we've ever had, why I know you quote The Simpsons a lot, but I love shows like that. They slip political commentary into them all the time. Why I absolutely love and have my entire life, as I think people here know, love frickin' rock and roll and have been to a billion concerts. And so for the subheading that they give you, I find that there's almost always a perfect line from a song that I've enjoyed in my life that explains it. And Land of Confusion was by Genesis. And you may remember that famous video with Ronald Reagan ending up where I think he wants to, they have all these puppets in it, and he wanted to push a button for like a Diet Coke or something and pushes the nuclear button. And they were referring to Reagan. And in my mind, as I've talked about on here before, so just to prove to folks, yes, a little thought does go into this for me. That is when our real land of confusion began. It didn't get bad, as you pointed out, Matt. It's always about the ratio, which is the ratio of normal Republicans, of normies to nutballs. And Reagan brought in, Goldwater had brought some in, Nixon had brought some in, but Reagan, when he won, really was the conservative movement and brought in a whole lot of nutballs with, Falwell's religious voodoo. And what's his name? Oh, what was his name? Jan, whatever his face was, who literally drew the supply side economics model on a napkin in a bar. And that is true. He literally sat there and made it up about how cutting taxes on rich people would make everything work out for everybody.
You mean the Laffer curve?
Yes. And there was a guy who actually drew up Arthur Laffer was the main one who got behind it. But there was another guy, Jan something or other. I can't think of his name. Right. Who was one of the Reaganites. And it's where this land of, and again, it's funny. He's now on our side. And I'm talking about Bill Kristol, but his dad, who was a famous neocon, Irving Kristol, who had been a Trotskyite, who ended up a Reaganite, quite a path, made a famous statement. See, this is what I was going to write my dissertation if I'd ever gotten my PhD on. So I studied this stuff pretty deeply when I was in grad school for history. He wrote a paper on, and what he said was, obviously he's Jewish. He's like, I'm not Christian or I'm whatever, but useful myths in society. We need useful myths. Supply side, we need to cut taxes. It may not be true, but it's a useful myth. So let's go with it. Falwell's garbage. Obviously, I don't think he ever knew how far they were going to let that go, to what levels of insanity. But back then they saw them as a useful partner. And so, yes, with Land of Confusion, I was thinking that video was huge in the Reagan years. That's where it started. And I thought about Hegseth now. I thought about Reagan, with his famous, like, in 5 minutes, Russia won't exist or whatever, which he said into a microphone, a live mic by mistake, and freaked everybody out. The bombing begins in 5 minutes. I'd have to look up the exact quote. And,
I've just passed a law that outlaws Russia forever. The bombing begins in 5 minutes.
There you go. He said that into a live mic.
Yes.
And back then, that was actually considered a really bad thing because presidents didn't say stuff like that. I know for all of you youngins, and it went from him to Newt Gingrich and the fallacies and the made up lies and how to attack your opponents and garbage of Gingrich, who never was about anything but power, to the George W. Bush administration. And yes, even though we may like where they are now, Dick Cheney and all of them and their lies to get us into Iraq and all of that. And it's built on each other and built on each other. And as that stuff kept getting worse, reasonable conservatives or moderates hung around as long as they could. The Jim Jeffords of the Snow, or the Lincoln Chafee, and eventually the Colin Powell, and even the Adam Kinzinger, who's actually not even a moderate, a conservative. People like that, Jeff Flake, who's conservative, to where they could no longer be there. It's a death spiral, is what you would call that, to where all the normies left, and what you're left with is all the detritus, all the lunatics, all the Pat Buchanans who were leading the crazy wing of back then. And so, yes, Land of Confusion bridged where I believe this began, to Hegseth sitting there, because of course it ends with a nuclear war, that video. Hegseth sitting there sharing a war scheme in a, in the signal. And so we are in a land of confusion. And I've tried to make this point so often, and it is why I've had Brian Karam on here, who is an amazing reporter and just about as big a fighter for the First Amendment as you'll ever find. I'm so glad he's on my side on this, where his argument is that disinformation is not protected by the First Amendment. It undermines the First Amendment because it makes speech worth nothing. If you don't know what truth is and what lies are, if people can share speech that get other people killed all the time, no, you don't need to go and take care of that disease. I won't get specific. Sorry, YouTube. You don't need to, you don't need to, look at those aluminum tubes. Those must be weapons of mass destruction. I mean, if when we get to that point where disinformation is so rampant as it is today, that there are a whole lot of people who have just no idea what's up and what's down, you can't have a democracy. Eventually it will fall. We either take on that problem, or we accept that we'll lose our democracy. And so that's what the overall thing I'm getting at in there. That's where we are today.
No, this is the world we live in. These are the hands we're given. Thank you, Amy Taylor, for suggesting that. I needed that earworm back with me. The other aspect of this that you're suggesting, I think, in your Substack, is there's a certain amount of gaslighting. There's a certain amount of trying to mess with our perception of reality.
Can I say something quickly, Matt?
Oh,
I don't want to interrupt you, but here, Kurt on the radio, Kurt, you have to understand, like, this was my guru when I was writing what I was writing. And the fact that we've gotten to where we are today, but the paranoid stuff, Richard Hofstadter was a genius. And I think they got him wrong. I think there was a reevaluation of what he said. He pointed out that a lot of populism was led by anger and emotion and pitchforks, whereas the progressive movement was led by logic and science. And we need some populism, some righteous anger sometimes. But it is like a caged tiger you need to keep caged. You cannot, we on the left, let it out at our own peril, where it can go too far and it can consume you like it has the Republican Party. And Hofstadter pointed out that paranoid style, Anti-Intellectualism in the American Tradition is another great book I'd recommend by him. I read all of his, Age of Reform. And that paranoid style, I would sit there and I wrote an actual piece at the time, not at the time, because he died sadly in 1970 of cancer. I mean, he wrote 5-6 amazing books. I wish he'd been around longer. But he was looking at Goldwater. He was looking at Nixon and some of the early craziness in the Republican Party, and the Birchers especially, and the stuff they were saying, the stuff that we would now consider normal, right? Like from the Republican Party. But back then was considered insane, the stuff that they were saying. George Marshall was really a communist. Dwight Eisenhower is a communist, things of that nature. And he's pointing out how this paranoid style had shown itself in extremist movements on the far left and the far right. And literally the way I was looking at what was happening to the right was through the rubric of Hofstadter and paranoid style. So I had to share that. And I'm sorry, Matt.
Of course. No, of course. And I think there's a connection point to where I was going. And actually, in the chat, William Knight, a few minutes ago, made a point along the lines of where I was going. And he says, Reverend Jerry Falwell, a founder of the Republicans' Moral Majority, said one time that society should still be segregated if we were to follow God's word, a stupid distortion of scripture. And I want to focus on that word distortion, because the other...
You wrote a pretty important piece, Matt, that you should talk about where it went from segregation to something else.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. You know, and for people who would like to follow me on Substack, which I'm going to rename mine Beyond Politics very shortly when I launch my own Substack, or if you want to follow the pod.
If you find Matt's stuff, Jim, and you can share it on the chat here, his Substack, and
I think I'm Matt Robeson too.
He's got a Newsweek column every week, and yes, they're right wing, and yes, we need voices. I co-wrote a piece with Matt when I launched my Substack because our voices need to appear in those places. Matt is an important voice out there that we need to get bigger. So please follow him everywhere humanly possible, except for home. Don't follow him home.
Thank you. Yeah,
but everything else.
Good luck finding me. And yes, my pod is Beyond Politics, and I did an interview several years back, and I think this is what William Knight is referring to, kind of the same basic thing. It was on the roots of the right wing, of the evangelical right wing in America. And I had Randall Balmer, an amazing scholar and an evangelical himself. He's a professor at Dartmouth College. And he had been in the room with many of the founders of the Moral Majority and the right-wing evangelical movement. And he made a really important correction to my mental memory of politics over the last 50 years. He said, you know, we misunderstand where right-wing evangelical opposition to abortion came from. Actually, in the 1970s, in the early 1970s, evangelicals were what we would understand today as pro-choice. They cynically adopted a anti-choice position because their real agenda was to protect segregation academies, to protect places like Liberty
Bob
University,
Jones, which
Bob Jones.
Wasn't there a lawsuit at the time that where their tax
there was
indeed
taken away? And it was because Richard Nixon's IRS was going after these kind of like segregation academies, like false fronts for violating tax status. And
Richard Nixon was going, just so you all know, the complicated man that Nixon was, and I'm not defending him in any way. Criminal, deeply insecure, lots of problems, broke into the DNC, did all that stuff, and even started to pioneer the Southern strategy so that they could win. And yet still here he was, because personally, I don't know that whether he was racist or not. I'm not saying that makes it better, but it's funny when you look back now, because you also remember he started the EPA, which people have a hard time feel like. Yeah,
and people can look this up. Randall Balmer, you can read, he wrote a Politico deep dive. Of course, I'd prefer that you listen to my interview with him on Beyond Politics, but it was so eye-opening and well-sourced and extensively documented that, and again, it really, the nexus here that connects it back to what you're saying is that, of course, our concern is our basic understanding of reality, but there's also cynical distortions of people's strongly held beliefs. In this case, leveraging people's faith, their piety, their belief in Jesus Christ, in order to cynically manipulate them politically and to add them to the right-wing political movement in order to strengthen the Republican Party and elect your allies who will protect your segregation academies. That was the agenda. That's what we continue to see. And you even see threads of it play out to this day. Russell Vought, the head of OMB, the kind of intellectual force behind what's going on with all of the cuts and destruction to the federal government.
It's the same name as the evil industry in The Boys, which makes so much sense.
That's so amazing. And one of the intellectual leaders of Project 2025. Read his chapter in Project 2025. I commend it to you. And I'll summarize it right here. I will give a Cliff's Note version of it if you like. Yes,
And
which
you
is
said it right too. You say
thanks.
you say it the other way, they come after us. But you say Cliff's Note.
Yes.
Ha ha, you guys don't own that one.
Right. It's like that movie, The Shinning. We don't want to get sued.
That's right. Well done, Matt.
The Cliff's Note version of it is that the Constitution demands that the executive branch have untrammeled authority over everything, that there be no constraint from the courts, and that the Congress itself should have very limited ability. They hand over the money, and that's about that. And even and
did he even read the Magna Carta ever? Like, he's going back far for this.
It's worth reading, and this is kind of the intellectual idea, and this is what I'm writing about for Newsweek right now. When we get off, I've got to go back to my draft.
You're not leaving. No, it's okay.
This is the underpinning of what he, in alliance with Elon Musk and under the protection of Donald Trump's presidency, what they're trying to do to all of us through the federal government, how they're trying to wipe out the Constitution. It's this distortion, this deep distortion of basic reality. And if we can't maintain that, if the media can't help us maintain our understanding of reality and truth, how can we fight back through a democracy?
And they can't, and they're not even trying. And that's the frustrating thing about it. I wanted to bring this up quickly just so I don't forget. This is becoming a game time decision, folks, as they would call it, which is, I put this up about Fugelsang. I went on John's show actually last night. I don't know if any of you listened to it. And I only say that because John is on, poor John, he's on Sirius Satellite from 9 till midnight. So I was on last night about 10:30 to 11. Great show. John's one of the most fantastic people. He's supposed to be, and I'm talking to the person after this is over at Substack. He's supposed to be the first guest tomorrow, which would be at 2 p.m. on my first Substack live stream. It's not the big kickoff yet, but it's going to be getting used to it there and whatever. So he's supposed to be on. I need to confirm with him, confirm with Substack. One way or another, you guys will know what's going on. And if worse comes to worse, I'll do what I did that day where I did the 12-hour thing. No, I'm not doing a 12-hour thing, but where I simulcasted and had Stephanie Miller on via my computer and had Substack on via my phone. And if I have to, I will do both. So some way you will either know that I'm doing this on Substack, and then you will all need to go and join and get the app. You don't need to write your own content ever. You can follow just me and Matt, just 5 people you like, but that will be the rule going into the future on Substack.
And Tony Michaels in there.
Oh, of course, Tony Michaels. I'm just saying, like, Tony, Tony, you, like, there's a whole bunch of people. My friend, Jonathan Larson with the fucking news, which is outstanding. People like that, like you have to, and a lot of the great ones. Greg Olear, one of the most brilliant writers I've ever read, besides being a great political analyst and an expert on the Trump-Russia stuff. But point being is that is going to be where the Thursday thing will be heading towards. It will be a Substack only thing, and that's because they at Substack are going to promote the hell out of it, and that is going to make it a lot bigger. And it is, it is what it is. YouTube never has made me that offer before. So we'll get into that. But I just thought it was interesting because you brought up Substack. You brought up Fugelsang, and he makes the most brilliant arguments because of his Jesuit background and the rest,
right?
About how full of crap they are and all this stuff. They're all about, they don't understand the New Testament. They choose not to. They don't say anything that's very Jesus-y. I do find it kind of funny that Schechter and Robeson here believe in more Jesus-y stuff than they do.
I am a Jewish dude who's married to a Catholic woman, so I'm sort of contractually obligated, but it does bring to mind the quote, I know, it's a Woody Allen movie, he's canceled, I get it, but it's a good quote. If Jesus came back today and saw what was being done in his name, he would never stop throwing up. And I'm not quite, but I'm married to a Presbyterian woman, and we are both heathens, which makes our kids nothing. That was a line from Spaceballs. Sorry. That's right.
I am your cousin's first, whatever. But doesn't change the fact that whatever my religious beliefs or whatever they are not, this all the stuff in there that Jesus said, who I think was a prophet of sorts, as I do think Martin Luther King Jr. was, or whatever, whether I believe that, he was resurrected, which I don't, and all that stuff. I believe I believe that people that we consider to be prophets are people that are, there are throwbacks like sociopaths, those that are missing like modern ingredients of the brain to make you feel things like empathy and whatever, back to our earlier selves. They're what I would call throw forwards. They are somehow hundreds, if not thousands of years ahead of the rest of us in their understanding of our purpose and meaning. And that is what I believe Martin Luther King was, and Gandhi, and Jesus, and a whole bunch of other people. So I don't have to believe that Jesus was the Son of God.
Right.
I just believe I believe he was something akin to a socialist.
And
he was to the left of me.
And to get good answers to questions like what Adolf Twitler, I love that screen handle, by the way, just put in the chat. Would Jesus support Republicans putting razor wire in a river in order to prevent refugees like Mary and Joseph from entering Bethlehem or America? What would Jesus do? I bet he would answer.
Well, I don't know. I read this thing about the traveler on the road and taking in
whatsoever you do unto the least of these, my brethren, you do unto me. Something like that.
Right. See, the benefits of having gone to an Episcopalian school for 10 years, that was actually incredible. And I mean that because I think out of a class of 30 something, like 20% of the class was Jewish, a decent percentage of it was Black. And this is the late, again, when I was like 4, 5, 6 years old, we're talking about late 70s, early 80s in New York, where segregation was still in New York City. I know you think of New York City now, liberal, this, that. No, it was everywhere. And yet we had this very mixed liberal class, and we had every Wednesday we had to go to chapel, and it was all the social justice stuff that we read and learned about and talked about. Not to mention they also made sure when we had religion class, as you'd expect if you were in a Catholic school, religion class would be like, here's the way. It's Catholicism. Well, in ours, they taught Catholicism, various sects of Protestantism, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism. They taught us everything. So I feel like I actually, as I'm not John Fugel saying certainly, but as somebody of my background goes, remember and know a lot of what Jesus said, and they represent none of it. Okay. So the Good Samaritan story literally is about helping an immigrant. Okay. And they have taken the exact opposite, which is how what a little porn monitoring fraud Mike Johnson is. And just come out of the closet already. Okay. We all know. All right. I'm tired of even dancing around it. We know. All right. So just stop with the overblown. Shouldn't have used those words. Stop with the sort of, I'm a religious nut and I'm a religious Christian, to try to overcompensate for what you really are. Because I grew up in New York City. I have gaydar. This isn't tough. And if you could just learn to maybe be happy with yourself, maybe you wouldn't be such an asshole to everybody else.
By the way, people who are interested, I don't know how we turn this into a religion and democracy conversation, but we did.
It's all over the place, baby.
We're doing the weave, baby. I actually just interviewed the Atlantic author and Brookings scholar Jonathan Rauch on Beyond Politics. He is the author of Cross Purposes, Democracy's Broken Bargain with Christianity, or the other way, Christianity's Broken Bargain with Democracy. It's a great book. It's worth a read. So plug to Jonathan, and people want to check out the episode. You get a really good, again, Cliff Note version of it. And his basic argument that there is a role to play for a moral framework that Christianity provides in America, and that it's implicit in the framers' vision of how democracy in America would function. And Christianity has fallen down on the job by becoming, basically, as William Knight thank you for filling this in.
Corrupt
continues to
pieces
comment
of silver.
Yes, exactly. It continues to point out here in the chat, by becoming brittle and broken and infused with right-wing political ideology.
But when a character like Joel Osteen can even exist, and I'm not going to even make a joke. I've made plenty of Joel Osteen jokes before. But when a character like that can exist and be so gross, so greedy, the fact that during, I think it wasn't Katrina, but one of the later ones, he at first would not let people into his home. this guy who literally has a 30,000 square foot golden whatever mansion. He's got airplanes. He's got whatever. That the fact that his existence is repulsive, that he's used religion and that people keep falling for that. But on top of that, the fact that then he wasn't going to let people in, that to me is the embodiment. They bought off Christian leaders and corrupted them. And that's how they've done that with a number of them. They've started doing that in certain black churches too, how they brought some of their flocks over, which I'll say quickly. I thought of this. I'm like, wait a minute. I think I have this up there among my favorite books. There you go, folks.
Oh,
Just
nice.
to prove it, that it's always up there because it is something that you can go to. If I were to go to like random passages in here and read them, you like right away would sit here and be like, huh. You'd be like, this would just, you'd say to yourself, he was predicting our future. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
In any case, I'm actually looking in there because there's some things that are so good. Here he talks about, why do pseudo-conservatives express such a persistent fear and suspicion of their own government? Sound familiar, folks? Deep state, and you can read through here. Like he makes the point that there's a legitimate reason to fear international communism, and there was in 1970. It was an autocratic and offensive force trying to take land, but he goes beyond it to say the adherents of the paranoid style. Why do they need to find communists under every blanket in our own government? Why that, and whatever. I could pick any other random passages. You'd find everything in here from like your post-birth abortion type lies, to that's a big one because that plays into old sort of, I think, blood libel about Jews. I think that's another reason they adopted it, is they played perfectly into Jews eating Christian babies and all that kind of stuff, and whatever. But I couldn't recommend a book if you want to understand today's right wing more highly than Hofstadter's Paranoid Style. In any case,
hey, I know we're coming to the top of the hour. I have plugs. Should I? No, I don't. Not like that kind. But like,
you have hair plugs.
Man,
the ones that Elon Musk got, or not?
What I discovered is my dad died like 36 years ago. He had plugs. I didn't know that. It was like a rough thing to find out. It's like, Dad, come on, you didn't have to do that. You're fine, man. Anyway,
but 36 years ago, like we hadn't realized yet that it looks kind of cool to have a shaved dome.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like if you get there, I've always said
I have to say, if you have darker skin,
but if I get
not like me though. If you have darker skin, you look amazing. Like Michael Jordan. You look like an Adonis stud if you've got a shaved head. I
like Denzel in The Equalizer.
Yeah, like pasty white dudes like me. I fear that we would walk around looking like giant thumbs.
And I promise I'm not coming on to you here, Matt. But if you certain sort of features
it's okay, man. It's no worries.
Features that MAGA men have, I think, would do that. You are in shape. Like you don't have like 14 chins. You're in shape. You look like you take care. I don't think you'd be thumb-like. I could be wrong, but I just think
I don't know.
Mean, now on the other side, you could look like a Bond villain and end up looking like Bezos. You don't want that either, right? So you don't wear those sunglasses that he wears.
I'm gonna take this white head that's developing here. I'm gonna ride that thing out. I've got plugs though.
You're not leaving yet. If you think you are, you have to stay at least until 3:15. And I'll let
okay. I didn't know that I had.
Well,
that.
I think today I've got this big call, as I said, with somebody at the Substack place, and I need to prepare. So I will probably have to jump off at about 3:30. So if you can hang with me here till about 3:15, we can keep chatting up the fine folks here. We can get back to, if we want, HEGSETH and
well, let me hit the plug so I don't forget. So once we break at 3:15, I'm going to go back to writing. I have a theory about it's a question really. What is the MAGA end game? And that's something we could maybe talk about a little bit.
I just want to say, I didn't say this. I'm just sharing it.
Oh, jeez. Oh, God.
Wasn't me. I thought that was only Ben
SDE.
Shapiro, but apparently it's the entire group. Okay.
Remember when we did the fake ad for MAGA? Do you have SDE?
Oh my
Anyway,
God, that was so good. We
I
need to
mean, we're
make some more
serious.
ads.
We're serious analysts here. We promise people, but
No, I will never. I think the people, again, there's always new people, and I hope they get it. But I try to lay this out wherever I can, whether when I describe myself in any bio, from YouTube to Substack to whatever, is obviously I've taken subjects like history, politics, all sorts of things seriously. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't care about the world. I also make fart jokes, and I will take a cheap joke at times that I think is funny, because I have a sense of humor where I can laugh at anything, and so and often do. So people have to be good with a combination of both. But I try to save the at least creative and cutting remarks and insults and that kind of thing, things for the bad people, so that they actually serve a purpose.
I agree, and by the way, no, I think that's important if we're going to leverage platforms like this, like Substack, to push back against the right-wing onslaught in the media that's distorting our reality. No, I was just going to say, and Pam Matthews weighed in here in terms of the end game, that I have an argument to make, that there's not one end game, that there's three. And what you're seeing in the Trump administration right now.
Remember, there are 14 million possibilities in the actual end game.
Right, and only one leads to Thanos not winning.
The one with his finger shaking was
yes. Well,
where's Robert Downey Jr. when we need him? Okay, go ahead.
But I think there are three forces that you can see right now within the Trump administration, three factions, and they all have their own end game, and they're aligned for now. And so anyway, I have a whole argument I'm developing about that. I'm writing it up in Newsweek.
So you're teasing us. You're not going to tell us who
I'm teasing it. I'm going to put it on my Substack. I'm Matt Robeson 2 for now. I got to go in and fix that. And I don't know, maybe we'll sneak a plug for it onto yours, but that's one piece. I have two other things coming up that people may want to check out. One is our mutual friend, Bill Sherritt, the managing editor over at Washington Monthly.
Just linked to a great piece of his in my Substack, not today, the one from 2 days ago, where he pointed out and made clear that J.D. Vance is the most hated vice president at this point in their vice presidency in the history of the country since we've been doing polling. And that was great stuff. So if you're watching, Bill, I've wanted to have Bill on here. I need to have him on here one of these days.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Bill.
Well, I'm talking to him about that. I'm talking to him about his previous piece about the subtle role that the filibuster is currently playing in fighting the MAGA agenda. It's interesting. So that's coming up on Beyond Politics. And I have our mutual friend, Dan Perry, the former Middle East editor for the Associated Press. He's literally led editorial coverage for the Associated Press all over the world.
Yeah, in Africa at one point, the Middle East
Africa, Middle East, Europe. There is no greater foreign policy expert alive today, especially in the Middle East. And I'm having him on. He'll be coming up next week to talk about, is this speaking of end games, is this the end of NATO? And what does it mean? Like, how big a problem is it that the Trump administration is in real time dissolving the transatlantic alliance, and what's coming next? So
I would have to say, and
those are my plugs.
I'd love to be a part of that conversation, is that, I mean, again, we saw it in our benefit in the post-World War II order, which is why Bretton Woods was passed, and that didn't put us at a particular advantage when it came to trading. It was a way of helping to enrich certain other countries. We, for once, did it right? Like, it was like if you imagined us actually doing Reconstruction in the way it was planned before we were betrayed by Rutherford B. Hayes, and it was overthrown, like the way it was being done under Ulysses Grant. That's right, a distant relative of my wife's from Ohio here.
Really?
Yes, true. That is true.
Wow.
But the way he was doing, which is why a lot of those racist, they called them the Dunning School back then, those racist historians of that age portrayed him as a drunk and corrupt and whatever, and why he's been reevaluated since. He was racially so liberal, like to the left of Lincoln. He believed in full, absolute equality. And he was pushing that vision. And that's why you had black members of state legislatures and members of Congress and even senators in one or two cases. And if we had kept on that path, that's what we did in Germany and Japan, where when you've got a destructive ideology in control, a death cult, if you will, a one that devalues certain lives and whatever, it literally needs to be smashed to pieces. There's no other way to put it. I'm not saying physically like you must kill this many people. I'm saying it needs to be ended. You need schools. You need to pay for schools to start teaching people the truth. You need to make sure people are getting truthful information. All these things that we failed to do when we let segregation grow in the South. And I bring this all up because NATO was part of that whole effort, because that effort was, and this is what people on the right can never understand. Yeah, the US was going to pay extra money, but we were doing it for our security. Like, it wasn't like, oh, we're, Trump, everything's a zero sum game. And for these right wing idiots, well, look, we're paying in more into it than they are. And we set it up the way we set it up because we wanted to be the global leader. We wanted to be number one. That was the position we wanted to occupy and make sure that we controlled our destiny, and we were going to pay more into it. And that was going to allow us to have things like bases in Germany, right? And Okinawa and whatever. And we were going to be very involved around the world. And these things were set up purposefully. Now, you can have a conversation about whether that's necessary anymore. And you can say maybe the U.S., in a pre-Trump era and whatever, just a normal U.S., a U.S. that in 96 was choosing between Bill Clinton and Bob Dole. And I'm not saying Bob Dole was like a prince, but compared to this was, as moderate establishment and reasonable as it could get. And I'm just saying, I know you're smiling. I know that you're thinking Bob Dole's chair or something like that, because I know you, Matt, like some Saturday Night Live skit or something. But point being,
I was thinking Simpsons, but go on.
Okay. But point being that there could be an argument at that point. There could have been, and since then, that we're not needed in the same way. That there should be a more equal balance in NATO. But we would have to accept then that we are giving up the ability to veto a lot of stuff. We are giving up that power. With the money we put in comes power, comes, the standard of living that Americans have gotten used to, which is a very high standard of living. Yes, there's some basics we don't have. We could have added those basics and still had this standard of living if we weren't spending everything on defense, because even with what we do for NATO, it's not connected. The reason why our defense budget is so bloated has to do very much with, sadly, lobbyist Christmas that happened after 9/11 and even before then, where we start spending on all sorts of things we don't need to be spending on. My point is we could probably cut a quarter of the defense budget without even blinking an eye, and still it wouldn't touch funding for places like Ukraine, NATO, where we would be a leader in the world and occupy that position. But I'll say again, for the last time, if we don't want to, we don't have to. But we don't have to pull out of the damn thing entirely. That is there's a Trumpian dictatorial, pro-Putin, Orban, pro whatever. That is, that's what he's doing. So my final thing I'll say, and I'll kick it to you, is if we do that, I don't think NATO ceases to exist. I think the United Kingdom and France have nuclear weapons, whether they admit it or not. I think they both do. They can spread those out to plenty of other Western European countries if they think it's in their interest. They can all build up their economies and trade with each other. They can all build up their military. They can work with Canada. They can work with Australia. They can work with Japan. They can work with South Korea. There are a whole hell of a lot of other democracies around the world that have strong economies, that have various natural resources they need. I would argue they do not need us, frankly, and can continue it without us if this is the way our current leadership chooses to behave.
Well, I invite people. I'm going to put that question and the way you framed it to Dan Perry. So I invite people, check out Beyond Politics. And Dan Perry has an excellent Substack called Ask Questions Later. I assume that means shoot first. That people can check out.
He's a good dude. I'll probably do one of these live streams with him at some point.
Yeah, he's really interesting on this. But I'll put that point to him, and I'll just say that the broader point you're making about, I think it's very hard there's an intentional strategy that you know all about to flood the zone. That's part of Project 2025. It's a deliberate effort to make it too difficult, like a lion contemplating a herd of zebra. You see nothing but stripes, and it's hard to hone in on one particular thing. And that's how they're kind of under the cover of chaos, getting some truly horrible things to get done in the midst of things that are like, well, you could argue, well, so the destruction of USAID more and more is coming out about how much death. Nick Kristof had an amazing tally in the New York Times over the weekend. Hundreds of thousands of deaths. And I'll just point it.
Remember, Elon, as he said, has done nothing bad. He's just, he only does good things.
Right. And Elon called USAID evil, said that he was happy to be putting it into the
children with AIDS should definitely, it was their fault. They were asking for it, and that we should let them die. Like, he's the most evil, corrupt.
There are in my Newsweek article about this. In my Newsweek article about this, this was just the information that was immediately available at the time. I wrote this a few weeks ago. 40 children a day in Uganda are going to contract HIV because they lack access to the preventative medications.
Evil.
100,000 people in Khartoum, Sudan, who get their one and only meal a day through the U.S. Are going to go without that. And
wasn't some of it ordered back in place, though, by a judge? Or
some of it was ordered back in place, but what you're seeing from on the ground reporting is that there's so much chaos, confusion, and uncertainty that the individual institutions that deliver the aid are shutting down. And the disruptions have already occurred. Deaths are already occurring. And looming on the horizon is the end of funding for PEPFAR. And look, you and I are no fans of George W. Bush, but my personal view...
No, when people do good things, you give them credit for the good things that they did. George W. Bush, I would say,
George W. Bush,
85 and 92% of what he did. That's not a statistical reality. I'm making this up. Sucked. But there was a certain percent, and one of the things you're about to say was maybe the best thing he did. Certainly one of the great things.
25 million lives saved, mostly in Africa. Tell me that he doesn't deserve a Nobel Prize for that, and then you take it away for all the other things he did.
Well, that's the reason why I think when you make, I think, no, I'm not even making a joke. I think I think somebody who started, a preemptive war of choice based upon lies about WMDs.
Absolutely,
you just can't. Agreed. Too many more lives are made miserable. But I will. No, but again, I can like, you can actually see 2 points at the same time. And what he did there was amazing.
Absolutely. And when he reaches the pearly gates, that will be held very much in the ledger. And the idea that under the Trump and MAGA and Elon and Russell Vought infused effort to take a blowtorch to everything that we as a people do that is any good for one another, in the midst of that we are losing that. And
the entire post-progressive era world where we believe in
professionalized agencies that save our lives. About. Yes.
Yeah.
With NATO. The idea that the U.S. actually stands for something in the world. And yes, it's not entirely altruistic because there's a soft power element to it. There's a competition with China for interests and vital minerals and
there's
resources,
security and trade and other.
And all of those things. But fundamentally, it's also a moral proposition, and that we are supposed to stand for something. And in the long run, we can bend the arc of the universe toward justice and toward the values that we believe in, and that is what is under attack.
Right. No. I think this is this goes so far beyond anything they've even done before on the disinformation front, because they're attacking basic precepts, basic sort of values that we grew up with and we were just taught, like we never questioned them. They were right. Basic, you shouldn't, at least that I was brought up with, that you shouldn't be treated differently because of who you are and what you are. That if you can help people in foreign countries, in this country, you do. You know, if you can, I mean, and they started chipping away at that a long time ago, right? At many of these things. But where we are now, again, like when you're sending people emails the Friday before and saying don't come into work on Monday. I know a lot of that has been undone. But think about that for a second. Just for a second, think about that. Think about I mean, especially if you're in a position where you're a single father, single mother, whoever, you're working in one of these government jobs, you get great benefits. Maybe you're making 70, 80, maybe even 100 grand a year. Who knows? You know, because you've been at your job for a while and you get this sudden thing that you are fired and you've got kids and you
Well,
have no idea what happens with your health care, what happens
and
with taking
then
care of your kids. The cruelty to not only do this stuff, but to do it that way. It just
yes,
they're just awful. They are the most awful people.
but and the awfulness comes from the way you aggregate that out to the effects on all the non-federal employees, all of us. And I just had on Beyond Politics Eli Hager, who was the reporter who broke the story. He got the tapes from inside the meeting at the Social Security Administration.
Oh, that was a huge, yeah.
Yeah. And I had him on Beyond Politics to talk about, well, what was on these tapes? What was it like? What did we not even hear in the reporting about it? And it is breathtaking. And I'll just point out who was saying in the chat that was it Chipmunk Milk? Yes. Project 2025 calls for using public channels of communication like Signal instead of secure government channels to subvert FOIA requests and conceal. Yes, spot on. And
it literally they write out we should be doing something illegal.
We should be doing this. Another thing they say that Russell Vought says is that we need to do what you're saying, Cliff, all of these steps to, quote, create trauma. You look this up. It's The Guardian reported on it. To create trauma among the federal workforce, to create chaos, confusion, so that they leave, so that the functions start to break down within the government.
Yep. They want us to not expect it. Like if they to fully shrink the government to where the billionaires can play around with their crypto and and whack themselves off to it, which Elon's probably doing, but he's not flying a little airplane around the table. That idiot. But for them to do the things they want to do, we cannot have the size of the state we have now, which means, again, we're going back. I've done this before, right? Like FDA created, I believe it was like 1906. I mean, we go back to the FDIC, 1934, 5, 6, things like that. Like, we're not going to insure your money in a bank, which now I think it was 100,000 originally. I think it's about 250 now is the amount they insure in a bank. So people don't just pull all their money out of banks, which you'd think people that claim to know the economy would understand would be a bad thing to do. Their whole thing is if a certain number of people get poisoned and die, even if that's something that could have been preventable, that's the trade we have to make to have a smaller government. And what they're realizing along the way is they thought they were going to cause all this trauma, but I don't know how they underestimated the fact that even some of the semi-brainwashed Trumpers were going to react the way they're reacting. Because when you threaten their kids, you threaten their ability to eat and go see a doctor. It's amazing. They may be selfish as hell, but we do have to all embrace them because remember, folks, we need to win. Amazing how they don't just react the way you thought and everybody run around in a circle in chaos. They get pissed. And that's where something we need to do, and this should become a more common phrase, we need to flood the zone with truth and attacks on them based on truth, on the way the world is and the way it could be if it weren't for them. And that involves our elected officials holding constant spectacle, press conferences, events, touring. What AOC and Bernie are doing right now is right on. We should have many more people doing that. We should have press conferences outside of Congress every damn day when they do something else stupid. We should have paid ads flying around. Hell, create ads like what Matt and I did with that ad we talked about. You could dump it. I mean, how many video platforms are there these days between YouTube and TikTok and whatever? You don't need to spend a cent on it and go viral. It should be a constant assault on them. for what they're doing.
I just have to point out once again, Barbara Binstein just like bringing the heat in the says, spoiler alert,
You can't have that alliterative a name and not be cool. Okay.
Spoiler alert, Project 2025. It's a cookbook. Barbara, I made the exact same joke and I put in the video clip from that Twilight Zone episode when I had the Center for American Progress's top expert on Project 2025 on
Soylent Green is people.
I literally, Project 2025, it's a cookbook. Yes, exactly. It's the recipe. And I just to try to tie it all together, the point is when you hear Russell Vaught describe in Project 2025, you call his shot, right? Call his shot that they're going to traumatize the federal workforce, that they're going to create all of this chaos and confusion. It is a cookbook. It is a prescription for exactly how they want the federal government to melt down so that Donald Trump can say all he wants, I won't touch your Social Security benefits. Well, technically true. But one of the things that Eli Hager pointed out in my interview with him is your benefits are already getting affected. They're getting delayed. They're getting messed with. Your appeals, if you have a problem.
This crap with they're getting rid of Social Security offices because they know they've done this with Medicaid for ages because they knew that folks sadly who had less education and less understanding of our system might just give up and be like, well, I can't get any benefits. I'm not going to bother. And that's what they're trying to do with Social Security now. So the hope being that people Matt and my age, our parents, and people like that will just say, I don't know how to use a computer that well. I can't do this. There's no office here and I can't call in anywhere. So I guess I give up. Right. That's what they want. It's a way.
And what the reason I think, and I wrote this up, call me a conspiracy theorist. I wrote this up in Newsweek a few weeks ago. The reason for Elon Musk's 19-year-old tech bro incursions into key government databases. Remember the movie Office Space?
Of course.
You remember what happened to Milton?
It's a favorite. Yeah, Milton had to keep moving, but in the end, he ended up with the check and a pretty good life.
Right. So what happened was they fired Milton, but no one ever told him about it.
It was like a glitch.
A glitch in payroll. They kept paying him. So you know what they did? They didn't want to fire him. They fixed the glitch. Well, now Elon Musk has access to all of the key payment systems. Look it up. Look under my name, Matt Robeson on Newsweek. I wrote it all up. I provided all the references and sources, right? They have the access. They can fix the glitch for anyone in the federal government, whether you're a beneficiary or you're an employee. They can stop your benefits or they can stop paying you if you work for them and you'll just give up. So they can keep Donald Trump's statement technically true. Oh, no, he's not passing any.
So are you saying they see the New Deal as a glitch?
I think that they can literally go in and say, well, you may still be entitled to benefits. I don't know what happened to your check. Oh, Cliff, I'm sorry. You work for the Veterans Administration and you provide health care to veterans.
That's another place, though, by the way, where they are fucking themselves because veterans are getting together. They are getting pissed. They are becoming a political force. We all may remember something, if you studied history, called the Bonus Army that marched on Washington when they were starving because of Hoover and not being paid attention to during those times. And often, I mean, look, the military can be the tip of the spear for right-wing movements too. We know Oath Keepers and some of these guys, but they also can be very much the tip of the spear for progressive movements when they are not treated properly. And that march, whenever it was, a few weeks ago, there were, 2 weeks ago, there were a ton of veterans out there, many of whom, again, I can only make claims based on what they say. So could they have been lying? Absolutely. To make it seem like it was a stronger force, but everyone, not everyone, but majority of the ones I saw interviewed said they had voted for Trump. And so that is coming right out of Trump's hide. And where some of these states are that have numerous military bases. I give you Georgia. I give you Arizona.
Absolutely.
I give you North Carolina. These are places they cannot afford.
Listen, the plural of anecdote is data. Good friend of mine, his dad was in for surgery a couple of weeks ago. All of the discussion in the waiting room at the VA was how terrified people were about the cuts to veterans' health care that the Trump administration was making. And so this stuff does add up. So I don't know. We can be a little bit more positive about this. I do think the polling shows that people are noticing.
I have been. I mean, I put together a video this morning, which it's taken me too long to do this. I owe a couple of them, but you guys will be getting it. My Patreon folks will be getting it. And YouTube members will be getting it. And I just need to post it. But I talked about my optimism in there. You're seeing it. You're seeing the marches. You're seeing government workers refuse to go quietly into that good night. You're seeing when they wanted to show Elon Musk these war plans. Clearly, the only people that had access to this information were top level generals and others. And some of those folks, either one or numerous, leaked it to the New York Times so that it ended up not happening. And in that same article, they quoted a couple top officials. They claimed they were top officials, whatever. One was at the FDA. I'm trying to remember where else. But a couple other parts of the administration who said, we're here, we're not going anywhere. And if we believe in what we're doing in protecting people, and we will expose any malfeasance. So you're seeing it, you're seeing the bureaucracy fight back. You're seeing we've had certain religious leaders step up. Remember that Protestant minister who they went nuts on. That's an important part of our establishment, which is moderate churches and temples and things of that nature. You've seen, yes, the Paul Weisses of the world be little wimps, but you've also seen other members of the legal establishment step up and say, nope, we're not taking this crap. That's important. And look, we've even seen some people that used to be less political who are we go after the billionaire class all the time, but you see Mark Cuban getting more political, people like that. I'm just saying.
I just got a great idea for you. You know what you got to do? I tried to get Kim Whaley, who's the ABC
Thank
News.
You, Stephanie. And everybody do like what Stephanie did.
Yes. Oh, and by the way,
the question, the paid one we sent out today, $1.25 a week. I just have to say it. You will get so much extra content.
It's an incredible deal.
Funny David. It is if you think about it.
When I subscribed, I didn't get that deal. What the hell, man?
Yeah, we lowered it since then. Sorry, dude. I'll give you your money, some of your money back if you really want. We had David Schuster did a really awesome, funny, informative video today. New York Times PitchBot was in there. I gave you the funniest responses I got from Trumpers attacking me. And I wrote my humor column, and I told you there are 2 or 3 other folks, a few others, guest columnists, like maybe one that might be on the show right now, but also some other people out there and some other features, people that who do big things on social media, who you're inviting to be a part of it too. I promise you, it will be very, very worth it.
Subscribe. Because you know what people will get if you follow through on my new idea. See, I was trying to get Kim Whaley, the ABC News legal correspondent, on my show. She's unfortunately tapped out. She's overseas right now. Anyway, it's a long story, but I have a better idea for you. You actually have a bigger Substack account than Joyce Vance. She's a previous guest on Beyond Politics.
Kind of crazy if you think about it. I have
Let me connect you guys. You should live stream with Joyce Vance to talk about the assault on the legal profession and the Paul Weiss debacle.
Connect me. I'd love to, because I think I told people yesterday I just got invited on Jim Acosta's show.
Perfect.
And he's got a big, leaves CNN one day, is at Substack the next. And again, ironically, I think this shouldn't happen in any universe, but I think I've got at this point more subscribers than him. That day, that 12-hour day, man, I may have had to pee for a lot of it, but
it was great.
That 12-hour live stream blew our total up. Well, that's one of the best PR ideas and just all around ideas I've ever had. And we are a top 10, got 600,000 subscribers, but we need to add to more paid subscribers if we're going to add more paid features. So that is something I'm really pushing folks to do right now.
When are you going to be on? When are you going to be on Acosta? Lefty Gramps wants to know.
Acosta sent me the email on what day is today? He sent me the email on Monday. And said, would you be interested in joining me? I'm planning things out the next few weeks. I said, absolutely. He just said, be patient. Give me a couple days by the end of the week. And so I should hopefully know by Friday when I'm going on. It'll be either next week or the week after. But that's one cool thing. Another one that, Robert Reich started subscribing. He's got one of the biggest Substacks to our Substack. which is pretty awesome. So we're, hopefully we can get together with him on something like this. Best one of all, we started getting followed on the actual app. We didn't get he didn't subscribe yet to our email stuff, but he started following us on the app. Tim Walls, that guy that ran for vice president. So we've got some really cool things going on, and some really, we have something there that matters and is important to Substack and is important to some of the bigger ones there, and that we have some clout there. We have a bigger one, whatever. I keep telling you guys, I'm staying here. I'm putting out videos. I'm growing this damn YouTube thing to 1 million subscribers at some point. But that's become more of what I call my home, because of the fact that YouTube wouldn't answer a damn phone call from me if I tried, wouldn't take any of this stuff seriously. They have Mr. Beast with his 50 million. I'm like a decimal point to them.
No, dude,
whereas
that's the exact.
I'm one of the 10 biggest Substacks or something like that over there. Big
and
difference.
It's great because you can be kind of a convening point for people who are providing
hilarious
independent media pushback. Look at
that's right, Brandon.
Big boy
I'm a
and
big
you got
boy.
Your big boy pants on. As far as
I got my big boy pants on, and I'm a big
sure.
boy. I'm a big boy, just like Elon. Hold on.
Oh, wait, hold on. What's this gonna? Oh, are you about to sniff something? Oh. I will say during the visual interlude, Barbara Binstein had asked if I'm on Blue Sky. I'm not. I'm like Cliff. I am consolidating. So I've had Beyond Politics podcast for a few years now, top 1.5% in the world of podcasts. And now I sound like I'm kind of promoting this.
You have to tell people that stuff though, because I don't like to brag about my Substack, but people need to know, that if you've got something successful that's working, there's a reason people.
That's true.
No, but I mean, seriously, there's a reason people like it, Matt. And I don't have that everywhere. There have been places I've completely flopped, but Substack is the right combination of written stuff that appreciates humor, that allows embeddable video. It's everything I do, and it's worked out really well. Your podcast, you are really good at. You shouldn't be afraid to tell people, because you should all subscribe to Matt's podcast. That's it.
And I'll tell you the thing. So for Barbara, for anyone else who's interested,
there we go. Edgers.
I'm also making the move. I'm pushing to. I have a Substack. I haven't really launched it yet, but if you want to get in as a subscriber now, I'm not even asking for money because I haven't launched it yet. I am apparently Matt Robeson 2. Matt Robeson 2. I am number 2.
Why are you apparently Matt Robeson 2? You don't know what you are?
I'm looking at it right now. I don't know. I'm Matt Robeson 2.
Okay, yeah, because I remember I was trying to subscribe at some point, and I was like, where the hell are you?
Yeah, I'm the Garfunkel of Matt Robeson's. But
that's right.
I am there. And I'll tell you what, I'll work on the Joyce Vance thing for you. And at the same time, I'm going to try and drag on another previous guest, Barb McQuaid. Maybe I will do a live stream launch like you did. And we'll get Barb McQuaid on to talk about all of the law.
I think you should. What was really cool, I've said this before about that launch, is that, a lot of really cool things, but Substack they wanted to move into live streaming, and they hadn't done a ton of it yet. And so it's so funny because their top guy, who is awesome, or their top partnerships guy, his name is Clyde Rathbone. And I looked him up. He was a former professional rugby player, played for Australia, played for whatever. And so his nickname was Rattlebones, and he looks like it. The way they draw Batman in the cartoons. So like his chest is out to here. And it's like, so I'm sitting there talking to Clyde with his British accent. And it's hilarious, but like they supportive in every way in giving you sort of ideas of how to succeed there. And
absolutely,
it's just again,
the one thing though that YouTube is still better at than Substack. Answering Jason Zeha's question.
Okay, well, one more second. I lost my train of thought there. What I was trying to say was, he was really excited about the live stream because we broke it. They never had 12 hours before. They got 3 hours of ours, and then their system went down. They had to try to find other video. It sucked in a way because we couldn't just put the whole video out a few days later, which I would have loved to have done. We put pieces of it out with certain people. I don't even think we've gotten all of it. But what was cool was they got all sorts of new data, and that's what made them decide they want to start launching and pushing people onto live streaming, and told me that if I would do this thing, they would help push it. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. It's not 12 hours. I can do it for 2 hours. So
that's the thing. I'm telling.
What did Jason ask me?
Well, first of all, I'll just say it was a great experience. And I mean this in the best possible way. It was the kind of thing where it's like, you can just put it on, leave it on your whole live stream. And like, you could be multitasking, but it's like, oh, there's Media's son. Oh, that's cool.
No,
like,
I mean, we got lucky in there that we landed a lot of good people. And
Heather Cox Richardson. Oh, yeah, I want to hear what she has to say. It was great. So anyway, no, Jason was asking, does anyone have any suggestions on how to remove a stubborn oil filter? That's the one thing Substack can't do for you that YouTube is amazing for. I do all my repairs, like how do I get a new igniter in my Samsung oven? That is a problem that I solved for myself, and I saved $600 on just by going to YouTube. Jason, I have a bet with you right now, live. Go to YouTube, look it up. I'll bet there's a video on it. And if you get the solution from that, all I want in return is go to Matt Robeson 2 on Substack and subscribe.
See, I use the word subscribe. I subscribe to the Family Guy theory, where he kept wasting money buying like volcano insurance and stuff that he didn't need. And he sang a song like, When I Wish Upon a Star, but how it was called I Need a Jew to help him manage his money. And an accountant's car breaks down in front of his house, of course, magically. And he comes in and he gives them all this advice. And he's like, is there anything you people can't do, besides manual labor? And I was like, yep,
oh,
that's me. I'm not helping you with an oil filter. If you need some help in investment advice, great.
Absolutely.
But, none of that. I think we've hit towards the end. If you want to jump, Matt, I'm just going to take about 5 minutes.
I'm going to do that. I got to go right. I got to go right
here.
Hey, thanks for having me on, and great to get all the comments. And this commenting group is really, really good. I'm not just blowing smoke. This is really interesting.
No, they're involved. They're awesome.
So, absolutely awesome. All right. Bye, guys.
Take care, Matt. I'll talk to you soon, dude. You want me to have you removed? Shall I have him removed? That was cool. I got to be honest with you guys. Like, I love talking to all of you, but I love it when we can mix it up. I can talk to you and then also just have a great guest who I've known Matt since high school. It's scary. Good chemistry, and we can just chat about stuff. So, at this point, it'll just be mostly, because I've got that 4 o'clock call and I don't want to mess it up. Mostly sort of house cleaning kind of stuff. I told you guys, please, please, please consider the $1.25 a week. Substack, that is where all of the fun and good times are moving. And I sent out one today where you could read part of it, but part of it's behind a paywall. If you can't do that, you can subscribe for free, and there'll be content there too. So please check that out. Always subscribe to YouTube. And again, for the live stream, I'm not getting rid of the Thursday live stream. It's just, if Substack is going to put their forces to work to get me more, promote it more so I get more paid subscribers, so it's a more affordable model. I've told you guys, this has been tough. YouTube is not helpful. They've demonetized a number of these things, which is really tough. Doing the live streams here sort of like I have to choose. I don't have as much time to do some of the other videos, medium length videos that made me money in the past. It's just, it's a difficult, YouTube makes it really difficult. You have to concentrate solely on that. And we have a huge head start at Substack. So what I'm hoping is Substack blows up, and then that can help the YouTube blow up further. But that all goes to the Thursday live stream. Part of their deal, if they're going to promote the hell out of me, is it has to be exclusive to YouTube. And that deal isn't going to start till April. I don't know yet, either the 10th or 17th. I'll keep you guys updated. So if I do one tomorrow, that's why I'm not sure about tomorrow. I'm checking in with them today. If I'm doing one tomorrow, I will make sure you guys know. I can either start off here and set it up and then bring you over there, or I can simulcast them both tomorrow, because again, the deal with Substack won't have started yet. John Fugelsang is supposed to join me. I need to check in with him and make sure that that's still a go. But, I can always grab a Matt or a Tony Michaels or all sorts of people if John isn't able to do it, or other folks we've had on here in the past. I want to get you something really good and really interesting. And again, if it is all done over there, all you have to do is get a Substack account. Okay. You do need to get a Substack account to watch. You don't need to do anything else. Right? You don't need to write anything. You don't need to participate on Substack in any way, except for having the account lets you watch. So that's all I would ask that you do, is that you sign up. But I also would ask that you become a paid subscriber, because if we get enough paid subscribers there, that's going to change everything. And I mean, again, it's simple math. Am I getting a cut in the ads at YouTube? I do. Do you know what my calculation is for YouTube? I'm serious about this too. If you have a Substack app, they will notify you, LeftyGram, so you'll know. So if you have the app, you'll be notified, which means you should get it as soon as possible, and follow me, and then you'll be notified when I go live, which will be 2:00 tomorrow. I'm telling you that right now. But Jim, yes, I get a cut of YouTube ads, and I cannot tell you how piss poor it is. I think I figured it out to where is it 29 cents per impression or something, and YouTube takes 19 of it. So just do the math on that for a second. They take 2/3. So you can make some money that way. No doubt I need to get some live reads and other stuff, and add, I'm not going to cost you with ads here. But I need at least one live read or whatever. That would help the economics of this. I'll be honest with you, the economics of these three live streams so far are very difficult. And it would have been, unless something changes, very difficult for me to keep going and putting this much time into it, because then I can't create the other ads, the other videos and all the time that get ads. And if I can get demonetized here, and I don't have live reads right now, which obviously I need to get to help this. So it's frustrating as hell. It is nonsense, Jim, and that's monopolies, and that's why we talk about the monopoly state all the time. YouTube is part of Google, which is a monopoly, and so they screw you. Substack is not. It may be eventually, because at one time YouTube wasn't, but for right now, it isn't, and it pays you fairly. They take 10% of what you get paid, not 2/3. Big difference. So again, I still think YouTube is a worthy megaphone, and I'm still gonna keep with it. And there'll definitively be 1 to 2 live streams from here a week, but you should know the Thursday one will start being over there. And again, tomorrow we'll see. Tomorrow is going to be, as it goes along, it'll be, I start on here, transfer you over there, tell you I'm over there, and you transfer over there, or I simulcast both, but maybe then I turn this one off and you have to go over there, and you have the app, or maybe I just do them both the whole time, simulcast the whole time just for this one time. I don't know. We'll get it figured out, but I have a bunch of things to figure out, that and John Fugelsang and other potential guests and everything. So that's it, guys. Again, I just like to be honest with you. I'm doing everything I can here. If YouTube weren't so damn greedy, if YouTube didn't do stupid things like randomly demonetize me here and there, the financials of this would work out better. If I had live reads going already, it would work out better, and that's on me. I've tried to, but it just hasn't happened so far, even though I know somebody who should be getting them to me, and it's a bit frustrating. But what I will tell you is the Substack thing already, just with a certain few hundred paid subscribers, is already at a point where it's coming close to paying me as much as YouTube, for a lot less work. It's just so I'm not complaining. There just are realities in the world, and I want to keep doing this. But to keep doing this here, even once or twice a week, I've got to add that, because this alone is making it so it's untenable. What I'm hoping is if Substack blows up, then I can send some people from there over to here, and this will grow. Same with Twitch, which I would love to grow. I love all the Twitch folks that come here. So that's that. I don't like talking about this stuff, but I do have to. And I always told you guys I'd be honest, and so I'm being honest. Right now, do I have to do a who's coming with me? What I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading off the folks that have given us support today. There's 3 of them. As you know, I like to hit double digits, so we'll read these 3. Hopefully, in the meantime, before I have to do any kind of threatening to leave with the goldfish, a few more people will jump in. And right away, there you go. Lefty Gramps does $2, telling me he'll catch me on Substack. He's also a subscriber there. He's told you many times how awesome it is, a paid subscriber. So thank you for all you do, Lefty Gramps, my Ohio brethren. Sheldon Hughes, always coming through. I always had a Heart concert Monday in Winnipeg. Nice. I've seen Heart a couple times when they've come through here. And the crowd of 15,000 all booed when a picture of Musk appeared on the screen. Canada hates Musk. I think we all pretty much hate Musk too. Canada more, but last I saw he was in the 30s approval rating. Even all the Trumpers hate him because he's taking their jobs. So good. Thank you, Sheldon. Woo. Hal says, hey. I don't know what is this a super something or other? It got highlighted. I'm not sure what this is. Is it? Oh, it's from Twitch. I don't know Twitch as well. Did you give me maybe there's a some sort of a support you gave me at Twitch, and then from Sheldon Hughes, I got gifted 1 membership for somebody, which is fantastic. But come on, guys, that's 4. Even as I've told you before, joining Patreon as a subscriber counts. 99-cent super sticker, something, so we can hopefully reach a point where I can say no more who's coming with me and leave here. But I've been here an hour and 50 minutes, guys. That makes it tough. I hate doing this, but YouTube isn't going to pay me very much for this period of time. So who's coming with me? Come on. Who's coming with me? Am I just taking the goldfish out? Who's coming with me? I don't know. It's not looking like we've got a lot of takers today, which is okay. I love all of my folks here who show up. But again, I hope you're understanding of why I have to at least partially disembark for Substack, because the economics of this place are tough. Yeah, I don't want to keep pushing it. If folks don't want to give, that's okay. I appreciate your being here. I appreciate your moral support and everything you've done to keep this going and to make this what I would consider a success. So I think that's it. We're on the way out. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Matt today. Matt's a pretty brilliant and awesome guy. And we'll see about what happens tomorrow. I will keep you updated. I think that's about all we've got. So, as the sun sets slowly in the west, my friends, I bid you a fond farewell.